Hello everyone, welcome to another episode of TCG Talk, back today with another video. And in today's video, I'm going to go over my latest iteration of my Katsu deck tech, kind of give you some of the changes I've made from now until the last time I did it, which was longer ago than I thought it was, and just give you my overall thoughts on the hero, where the hero sits in the meta, talk about some of the key meta matchups like Lexi, Jeremiah, and Oldheim. And it's going to be a deck tech, but also talk about like Katsu in the meta as a whole and like how I'm approaching the hero, and just kind of get your thoughts as a community. So if you like this type of content, please leave a like, comment, subscribe. If you're new to the channel, welcome. If you're a long-standing member, thank you so much for your support. Really appreciate y'all, and we'll get right into it. So this is the current list that I'm on, but for a second, what we'll do is we'll go back to the previous list. So the previous list I put out on March 17th. I didn't realize it had been that long. And basically what I did was I implemented the bonds line by doing 3 Bonds of Ancestry, 3 Be Like Waters, 3 Descendant Gust Waves, 3 Surging Strikes, obviously, 2 yellow bonds, 1 yellow McGinty, and 2 Surging Strikes. And I took the same approach that most people that play Katsu will tell you to take, which is you run a 3 of your starters, maybe a 3 of the second combo piece if it's a really powerful one like Whelming Gust Wave or Descendant Gust Wave, but then it generally tapers off, right? Like most people, when Katsu, before the bonds line came around, would run like 2 McGinty releases. In this line, I was running 2 Bonds of Ancestries at yellow, right? I was starting to taper it off because you don't want to clog your hand up too much with combo cards. So that's why I had that. Between that deck tech and now, for a little while, I went to having 3 yellow Bonds of Ancestries, and I ended up actually going to 2 yellow Descendant Gust Waves and 3 yellow Surging Strikes. So I added a card here, added a card here, and I added 2 yellow Descendant Gust Waves, and I was just all in on the bonds line. And what I was finding was when you hit, right? Like you could hit consistent bonds turns, really overwhelm your opponent, and it was really crazy. But if you didn't get it, your turn was literally kind of dead sometimes. And not dead so much like you couldn't play a hand, but dead in the sense of like your damage was severely below rate. And if you didn't have the good bonds turn, you didn't present your opponent with a decision that could force them to potentially make a mistake. And this is where we talked about how we're playing Katsu, right? And I won't go super in depth. I want to do a How to Katsu series. I'm really like working on the best way to make it right now. But the power of Katsu is not pure damage. The power of Katsu is to force your opponent to make as many mental decision points as possible to where eventually they're going to slip up on when to block, when not to block, when to push, when not to push, things like that. That's what Katsu does. Every card he plays, even though it doesn't have a significant on hit, at its height, you're basically telling your opponent, what are you going to do? And I know normally in Flesh and Blood that's kind of common, but in this game, in this hero specifically, that's his power, right? Is like, whether it's something as simple as Kadachi 100 wins, right? Are you going to block the second Kadachi, or are you going to wait to see what my third attack is, right? Like that was the original decision point. Now there's a whole lot more. So because of that, when I switched to having 3 yellow Bonds of Ancestries and 3 Surging Strikes and 2 yellow Descendant Gust Waves, I was finding that when I don't get that good bonds turn, I wasn't presenting my opponent with those decision points. And when you have these powerful heroes in the game right now, like Lexi and Azalea and Oldheim, you need to present those to even have a chance, right? So what I ended up doing, even after going up, is I went back down to my original ratios at yellow. I'm still at 2 yellow bonds, still at 2 yellow Surging Strikes, and 1 McGinty. I kept all the bonds line where I had Be Like Water, Bonds of Ancestry, and Descendant Gust Wave at red. And I have red Surging Strike, red Whelming Gust Wave, right? And then I also have blue Be Like Waters, just to, in a pinch, be able to maybe start the line. And then Dishonor, Lord of Wind, Whelming Gust Wave, right? Like that's the core power of the deck, is being able to consistently get that bonds line off, deal 15 to 20 damage, and just go crazy, right? 20 damage the minimum, and just go crazy. Especially when you start looping cards with Breeze Rider boots, it gets really dumb. I've had turns where I've gone Descendant Gust Wave into bonds hits, I pop Breeze, I go get Whelming Gust Wave because I have another bonds in hand, play Whelming Gust Wave, play Bonds of Ancestry, play Dishonor. Like you can just loop stuff, which is really, really cool. But I wanted to ask myself, right, you have these heroes like, we're going to ignore Oldheim because, spoiler alert, at a high level, if you're playing a good Oldheim, they should not lose to you. I will stand by that. Even with the new cards, Literally the stars have to align and Mercury has to be in retrograde for you to beat an Oldheim as Katsu if the Oldheim is playing correctly. You literally have to draw the nuts, and he or she has to draw absolutely nothing. So we'll ignore that. When it comes to Lexi, though, and Azalea and Dromai, you want to be able to present them and force them to interact with you. You're almost like Jedi mind tricking an opponent to interact with you. You want to tell them, like, hey, here's this 4-power leg tap on my Chain Link 1. Are you going to block it? If you block it, maybe you'll prevent me from going to get Rise and E-Thrust. But what if I already have Rise and E-Thrust, right? What if you played leg tap off Tunic? From Arsenal, you still have 4 cards in hand, and I'm telling my opponent, are you going to block me? Because if I have Rise and E-Thrust in hand, then I'm going to hit you for 5 more, and I have 3 more attacks potentially in hand. Also, I have 2 Kodachis. Are you not going to block me? Let me go get Rising, and then maybe I have Rising in hand with a Surging and a blue, and I use my last card to discard to go get a Whelming, and then all of a sudden I'm playing leg tap, Rising, Surging, Whelming, right? Like there's all these type of crazy decision points that you want to put in your opponent's head. So because of that, when it comes to not having the bonds line, like when you don't count the bonds line cards in your deck, I want to present my opponent with breakpoint attacks that force them to defend with more than 1 card, or defense reaction, obviously, where if I don't have the bonds line, I'm still forcing them to have to interact with me heavily, which is what I did with all my lines. So we have Enlightened Strike, just a really good flexible card. 0 for 5, go again. You can even draw a card off of it if you need to, if you want to Arsenal, although in a Breeze list, you're really never going to do that. You're basically either going to do 0 for 5, go again, or 0 for 7. Really good 2-card hand, especially with the decks that can disrupt you. Ancestral Empowerment, one of the best cards at Katsu's disposal, right? +1 draw card. We have Fluster Fist, which is honestly really good for a couple situations. One, it's one of the best Bonds of Ancestry targets if you're not going for the full Dishonor line. Usually on a Breeze Rider Boots build, being able to pop Breeze and then play Fluster for 0 for 4, go again is really nice. It blocks for 3, which is really nice. On a 2-card hand, you Kodachi, Fluster Fist for 6, Threatening Mask. On a 1-card hand, you can still attack at a break point, depending on what their life total is. Just really good, right? 100 wins mixed with Winds of Eternity, one of the most efficient lines Katsu has, right? It comes in for 3, then it comes in for 4, then potentially comes in for 5. Even off a Breeze Rider Boots turn, giving Winds of Eternity go again can be really useful if it's a mass draw. You can search for it, really flexible. Leg tap. Before Bonds came out and before Spinning Wheel Kick came out, this was the most efficient line that Katsu had. 1 resource for 9 damage. If you have Hurricane Technique in your list, it could be 2 resources for 14 damage. Just really, really, really efficient line, and it presents a breakpoint. I love playing leg tap off of Tunic on Chain Link 1. It is one of the best mind fucks for an opponent ever. Basically, you're telling your opponent, what are you going to do? I have 4 cards in hand, or I played it from hand. I have 3 cards left in hand. I'm threatening 4 damage. I'm threatening a break point. If you don't have equipment or a D-React, you're going to have to give me 2 cards. What are you going to do, right? Really, really good. Soul Bead Strike is one of the most underrated cards in Katsu. People still dog on it, and I don't get why. It attacks for 4 at a break point. You can discard it for Katsu, and it blocks 3. It literally does. It fills every single wicket that Katsu has. It's one of my favorite Chain Link 3 or Chain Link 4 attacks, right? So you basically like Kodachi, they block the second Kodachi. You play Soul Bead Strike. You say, hey, either you're going to give me equipment, a D-React, or you're going to give me 2 cards, or I'm going to keep going, right? Or you play on Chain Link 4, which I've also noticed is really, really nice. Like maybe you Kodachi just to sneak 1 in, or you 100 wins, Kodachi, Soul Bead Strike, right? 100 wins for 3, they take it. Maybe you 100 wins for 4, they take it because they don't want to block that. Then you Soul Bead Strike for 4 on Chain Link 3, right? Like there's all types of different lines. Basically, you want to play the Chain Link after you just made them block your mass trigger. Whether that's on the second Kodachi, whether that's on an attack, whatever it is, then you're like, oh, you just blocked with 2 cards? Okay, here's a 4-power Soul Bead Strike. And you go from there. So it's a really underrated card, and it blocks 3, and it discards for Katsu. I don't know what more you could want with this card. So there's that one. Spinning Wheel Kick, one of the best additions Katsu got from a consistency standpoint. It's basically a searchable leg tap that comes in for 4. the second time it comes in for 5 and cycles back into your deck, which is really nice, just really efficient. Yeah, so that's what we have outside of the bonds lines. We have the leg tap line, spinning wheel kick line with Cyclone in the sideboard, and then 100 wins. So we're basically saying either we're going to get this power bonds turn or we're going to get a breakpoint turn where we're still forcing our opponent to make a consistent decision to hopefully make them make a mistake so we can, gain advantage. And when you want to talk about meta, you talk about Lex. We're going to ignore Oldheim. We already talked about that. Talk about Lexi and Jeremiah and Azalea, right? Those are like the top, and even Bravo. Those are the top 4 you got to worry about. All of those decks are totally okay with block. I mean, Lexi doesn't like to block really that much at all, but all of those decks are totally okay with blocking with 1 card from hand. You want to make them block with 2, because if you can do that, then you start to gain really serious card advantage, especially with your Kodachis. So have as many breakpoint attacks as you can. I have found that I haven't had too much trouble with Lexi if it's a fuseless list, but that's just my play experience. I like this list because it's constantly threatening a lot of damage and a lot of breakpoints. So a fuseless Lexi list can't just race you down. She actually has to play efficiently and make proper decisions in order to stay in the game. If she doesn't and she just tries to race you, they lose more times than not, unless they just draw crazy 3-of-a-kind Codex turns. So there's that. Jeremiah, I haven't had any trouble with Jeremiah, but Katsu's always been kind of favored into Jeremiah. I haven't played a whole lot of like the Empress aggro list, so I'd really be interested to try that out. But overall, haven't had an issue with Jeremiah. Bravo, I'm like 6-1 on 5 wins, something like that. I haven't played a lot of Lexi on Talishar, but I've actually played a lot of Bravo, which is weird. Yeah, 5 wins, 1 loss. I'm not saying it's favored by any means, but having reinforced the line and flick flacks in your sideboard makes it really nice. And because you have consistent breakpoints with leg tap, soul beat strike, and spinning wheel kick, if the Bravo list doesn't have a lot of D-reacts, it's actually hard for them to just do the whole like 2-card efficiency hands and wait for a power turn against you. They actually have to like really either take it all and then try to disrupt you or block you more efficiently. So that's really nice. Yeah, so that's the basis of it, is really just trying to make my opponent like Jedi mind trick him and make him interact with me as much as humanly possible. When it comes to my blue choices, Dishonor, Lordawind, and Whelming Gustler are pretty common. They're all involved in the bonds and Lordawind lines. The Winds of Eternity just combos well with 100 Winds. I have 3 Be Like Waters in the main board at blue, so I can potentially start that bonds line in a pinch when I need it. It's just another good pseudo starter. And telling my opponent block 1 power to prevent a potential 15 damage turn really sucks. For them. And then 2 Concealed Blades. I just enjoyed this card. Lunging Press was probably my favorite card in Katsu. For some reason, I just love the card. And basically, this is a 3-block Lunging Press in this deck for the most part. So, really enjoying that. My one thing I'm really thinking about right now in this current moment is Mugenshi. Right now, I have Cyclone Roundhouse on the sideboard because I was playing a lot of Uziris and a lot of Assassin, and it was nice being able to potentially banish their equipment on a spinning wheel kick. But I'm thinking about taking this out, putting McGinty in the side, and then putting in like a Hurricane technique or something because McGinty can clog your hand up a little bit. What I've noticed actually in the early game to mid game is McGinty actually is a little bit better than Bonds if you don't have a good Bonds target. Because if you run to a Bonds turn but you don't have a good discard to banish to go get another one, it can be a little bit underwhelming. So McGinty actually has helped in that, which is funny because normally McGinty should be your late game play, but it has helped. But overall, it's a little bit clunky, and I would think about maybe putting this in the sideboard for the long matchups, right? And just put in a good attack. Maybe a 3rd Surgeon Strike yellow, maybe a Hurricane technique because I really love that card as well. Just kind of be a little bit more efficient. Looking at the sideboard, we have Command and Conquer. As long as Ranger is where Ranger's at right now, if you own Command and Conquers, put them in the sideboard. If you don't, I understand. Not everyone owns them. Play Wreck Havoc or play Erase Face is a good one. Even Humble's a good one. But Command and Conquer is really what you want. Flick Flack and Reinforce the line. Flick Flack's coming against Azalea, Bravo. They come in against Lexi because I like being able to block one of her 4 power arrows with 1 card. It's really nice. And then on a turn where maybe I have a dead hand, blocking a 4 power arrow and then blocking with another card for 5 is really, really nice. And then keeping 2 cards to Kodachi attack, right? Like if you have a Flick Flack in hand with a blue, a Fluster Fist, and a red whelming Gust Wave, you block with Flick Flack. Like that's a pretty dead hand, right? You block with Flick Flack for 4 on their first arrow. You block with Whelming Gust Wave for 5 on their second arrow, and then you Kadachi Fluster Fist, right? Just play that game. Reinforce the Line really only comes in against Bravo and Azalea. Those are the two main things that comes in for. Cyclone Roundhouse, like I said, I was playing a lot of Assassin when I first started this iteration of the deck, so I was having that in the sideboard. Pouncing Links for the Oldheim matchup. But the Oldheim matchup's still a little hard. You're really just trying to go get Dishonor or like a Lord of Wind or something like that. I thought about putting 1 blue Bonds of Ancestry in the sideboard just to help my Pouncing Links targets, but I really came to a consensus of don't tech for Oldheim. You shouldn't beat an Oldheim anyway. If you spend all your energy trying to do that, you're going to just die. Just, really get better at the Lexi matchup and the Jeremiah matchup and the Azalea, and just hope to God you dodge Oldheims. The 2 Null Runes for Icelander. Not really teching for Kano, not going to lie to you. It's really for Icelander. And then Van Brands was for Oldheim as well. Try to help that matchup a little bit more, but you don't even need that. Really, the key sideboard pieces you want are these sets right here. Command and Conquer, Flick Flack, Reinforce the Line. Those are the big ones. And obviously your Null Rune packages, but that's about it. But yeah, that's where I'm at with the list. It's really a breakpoint list, similar to the one I got top 8 with my PQ back in the Chain Starver era. Similar like play style. Everyone has different ones. Tyler Broughton's list was really good at the Pro Tour. Definitely try out his list as well. Super good Katsu player, if not like the best Katsu player overall, or arguably one of the best. So definitely look at his list and kind of go from there. But yeah, thank y'all so much. Hopefully you all enjoyed this video. If you did, please like, comment, subscribe. Let me know what you want to see. What's your thoughts on the list, if you have any changes you would make. And I'll see y'all next time on TC Talk. Thank y'all so much.